What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs, your destination for stats, maps, and dry humor, I guess. Today we're going the opposite direction of our last video, which was where millennials were moving to, and today we're going to look at where they're fleeing from. The census has some nice lists that show migration patterns of millennials over the last 10 years. The last 5 years, the same 10 appear on that list, maybe switching spots here or there, but for the most part, they stayed on the list. While doing the research, I found out that all of these cities are predicted to continue this trend. Now, the biggest problem with these cities and millennials is there's no jobs or too many low-paying jobs and not enough good-paying jobs. Millennials are in the prime of their lifetime earning potential right now in 2020, and they want to be where the money is. If you're retired and maybe looking for just a part-time job, these cities might be a good place for you because in a lot of cases, it's extra cheap to live there because no one wants to live there. But they're not cities that someone supporting a family or trying to capitalize on that education they may have finally paid off. This list is going to be ranked in order of net migration lost in last year's count. All right, let's see where millennials are vacating in droves. Number 10, New Orleans. And we start off today's list with the Big Easy, New Orleans. Founded in 1718 by the French, New Orleans was the territorial capital of French Louisiana before being traded to the United States in the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. This is a city that's been losing residents since the 1970s. Yeah, really, the 1960s was the last year they had a positive year, and 1970 was the first decade since 1810 they actually lost population. They have now decreased in population 5 census in a row, and when 2020s is done, I'm sure it's going to be 6 in a row. There's too many things to list wrong with New Orleans and why people are moving out, but we're focusing on millennials. It's a money thing for them. The income per capita in New Orleans is 5% lower than the national average, and the median household income is 32% lower than the national average. Unemployment in New Orleans was 30% higher than the national average in 2019. Last year, New Orleans lost 2,400 millennial residents. Number 9, Provo, Utah. When I first saw Provo was on this list, I realized something. Of all the people I've ever known, talked to, chatted with, commented back and forth, emailed, none of them were moving to Provo or were moving from Provo. It's just like they stay there. Nobody leaves, nobody comes in. It's just the same people in Provo, like they're living in a dome. I've always found Provo kind of dull, sort of like watered down vanilla ice cream. I did like hiking the foothills outside of town, but that was about it. On boredom alone, I could see people wanting to move out of Provo. The income per capita in Provo is 39% lower than the national average, and the median household income is 23% lower than the national average. In 2019, their millennial population shrunk by 2,800. Number 8, San Diego. This one caught me off guard. San Diego's a great city and everyone wants to live there. It's considered to have the best weather in the United States. I love San Diego. It's a great city to live or visit. It's just too bad the cost of living is so high. It's 50% higher than the national average, and housing is 130% higher than the national average. Those two stats alone are what's chasing away the millennials. But hey, at least they got a professional baseball team that's brave enough to wear brown and yellow. I mean, come on, brown and yellow? Before Labor Day? How tacky. In 2019, San Diego had a loss of 3,100 millennial residents. Number 7, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Ann Arbor was founded in 1824, named after the wives of the village's 2 founders who were both named Ann. And they also had a stand of bur oak trees. Ann Arbor. Get it? Arbor tree. Moving on. You know those dudes were privately telling their wives it was really just named after them, to smooth out future arguments or maybe get a little more action? I would. Ann Arbor is close enough to Detroit, but doesn't get much of Detroit's bad reputation, like other closer cities do. Ann Arbor has only had one census where they actually lost population, and that was the last one in 2010, but they only lost 0.1%. Not a drop at all, really. I'm sure hardly anyone noticed. The 2020 census, they'll be gaining 5% of their population, which is the prediction, so people are still moving into Ann Arbor. But they're losing their millennials consistently. Over the past 5 years, they've dropped about 3,000 each year, and last year alone, they lost 3,200 millennial residents. All the stats are decent in Ann Arbor. Schools, amenities, and crime are all great stats, but then you get to housing and cost of living. This is a major driver for scaring off your millennials. The cost of living here is 10% higher than the national average, and housing is 33% higher. Millennials don't like to stick around if things cost them too much. Past generations, they'd kind of put up with it, especially mine, Generation X. We bought some stupid crap. Not millennials. They're kind of holding on to their money and being smart, in general. Obviously, not everyone. Number 6, Boulder, Colorado. Less than an hour north of Denver, you have Boulder, Colorado, home to the University of Colorado and fewer millennials every single year. This one is sort of strange. On the last list of cities millennials are moving to, Denver, right down the road, was the number 2 most moved to city for millennials. And now here we are, just, less than 45 minutes away on a good day. You have Boulder, and they're fleeing that place. But why are millennials leaving Boulder, Colorado? This one is easy. When polled, the overwhelming reason millennials were calling it quits on Boulder was how pricey it's become. Housing is 152% higher than the national average, and the cost of living is 42% higher than the national average. It's kind of rough. Last year, Boulder's millennial population shrunk by 3,400. Number 5, Miami, Florida. Miami has never had a census where they lost residents. In the 2000 census, they got close, only gaining 1%. So they've always had people coming in. Most decades, they have had at least 10% population growth. In the 2020 census, it's estimated that they will gain an additional 17%. Now, those are the good numbers. Here's the bad numbers. Miami is losing millennials like I lose brain cells when I hear K-pop music. They lost 3,600 millennial residents last year alone. So why are they losing these millennials, you ask? I'm going to answer. The median household income in Miami is 43% lower than the national average. Now that is brutal considering this place has a really high cost of living. The unemployment rate is 25% higher than the national average, and the poverty level is 83% higher than the national average. Miami's crime rate is 62% higher than the national average, and the violent crime rate is 67% higher. Yeah, this place kind of sucks, on paper at least. I mean, great culture, great food. The people are decent in most cases. I mean, obviously not the ones committing the violent crimes. They're not decent people. It's a good city. It's just got a lot of stats in the wrong places, and that's driving millennials out. Number 4, St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis is trying to recover from a really bad reputation. It won't, at least not in our lifetimes. St. Louis does have some nice neighborhoods, don't get me wrong. They just got a whole bunch of really, really bad ones. And East St. Louis is right across the border in Illinois. That doesn't help matters either. Everyone likes to bring up how bad Chicago is when they're talking about, how much Illinois sucks. East St. Louis is far worse than Chicago. It's like no comparison. The only difference is East St. Louis has about a quarter of the population of Chicago. About 5,000 millennials moved into St. Louis last year, and that's great. Too bad over 10,000 might have taken my advice from past videos where I talk about St. Louis and got out. Yeah, so basically, in case you didn't want to do the math, 5,000 millennials left St. Louis last year. Number 3, Washington, D.C. I guess when they said drain the swamp, they were talking about millennials and not politicians, because the politicians are still there, and last year they lost 5,400 millennials. DC has a buttload of reasons millennials are skipping town. Crime is high, cost of living is 53% higher than the national average, housing is 149% higher, it's crowded, traffic sucks, and the schools are subpar on a good day. Don't move to DC. This one's going to be short because there's too many problems to really get into this one. Number 2, Chicago, Illinois. Hey look, Chicago made the list. The Windy City has always been a city people move to so they could start their career, advance their career, or maybe just get a job. Some people just want to try out the big city. Maybe they're from a small town, who knows? Those things are becoming a thing of the past more and more every year. Because of the internet, people are working from home more and more, and you don't always have to live in a big city for a decent job. Smaller cities are now getting some of those companies that only a big city would have before. And the excitement of living in a place like Chicago, it isn't, everything it used to be. Millennials know all this, and the big city isn't worth the price. Chicago is too crowded, too expensive, and too dangerous to be worth working there. Last year, they lost just about 8,000 millennial residents. And number 1, New York City. New York City has 8,175,000 residents and just under 20 million in the metro area. So them losing some millennials won't be noticed unless this keeps up for years. It's getting there. For over 100 years, New York City grew their population by at least 25% each census, some of them as high as 40%. In only 2 decades has the Big Apple lost population, in 1960s and the 1980s. Compared to the flood of people they got most decades, the last 2 have slowed to a trickle. They've only grown by 2% in each of the last 2 census. Last one in 2010, and this one they're predicting it to be around 2% also. Stat-wise, New York City is bad in everything but things to do. Really, everything else, crime, schools, housing, cost of living, it's all crazy bad, and then, they got a lot of stuff to do, so it makes it all worth it, right? No, not to me. New York City lost 50,000 millennials last year alone. All right, so that's our video today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. If you're from one of these cities, we'd love to hear your experience. We'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. Also, are you one of the people that's done with big cities? Are you looking for rural places? That's the new trend. Like I was saying, because of the internet, we can all live other places and do good work. Are you one of them? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget all the links. Give the video a big thumbs up. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.